Good morning. I've been enjoying, and I've talked about these before, the STA video series on RuneSlinger's channel. They are playing Star Trek 2D20, Star Trek Adventures 2D20. I have a soft spot for both Conan and Star Trek 2D20. I think they are fantastic game systems. They create a particular environment and a particular experience that not everybody would like or appreciate. And of course, there are times that we all have moods and feelings as to what we're in the mood for, right? Do we want to play simple, old school? Do we want to play? So, not about preferences, right? But so one of the things I'm looking forward to in that series is they're now transitioning to less. They're now experienced enough that we're now going to hopefully see in their next series of AP sessions more. I should say less game chatter, right? Less mechanics speak and less rules conversation, and now hopefully just more of this of role playing through mechanics, right? That's the way I would put it. And I look forward to that because I'm a firm believer that regardless of a game's crunchiness, regardless of a game's difficulty factor or its entrance level, we can master a system to the point that everyone at the table can recognize those dice, recognize all the rules and components, and role play through all levels of those things. And so I think that's what it does. It just creates a higher learning curve. It creates a higher threshold of experience. It requires a higher exposure in experience to achieve mastery, so to speak. Okay. In some games, I'm not certain you can master. I mean, they have so many rules that you just can't possibly know them all as a GM or a player, I think. So it's incredible. It takes years, really, to become a master of some of these games, I think. And that's, you're not even required to become, right? You can just play, right? But it reminded me of one of the things, I guess, we're getting at with Dark Age of Man. Our goal is to make the entry level mechanically so simple in our game that there's never a question of talking about the rules. There are no rules to talk about. So you never have to say, well, now what's happened here is I've rolled a 6, and now we got to look up on this chart the 6, and the 6 corresponding with this thing creates this. There's never any of that chatter because our game doesn't have any layers, right? I mean, there are no layers to Dark Age of Man. It is literally, Joe says, I kicked the door in. GM says the door I've already described, it's a big door. It's bolted. Go for it. This is going to be a nigh impossible check, and they roll body 19 plus 2 body, and the nigh impossible is 22 in our game, and he jams the door with his foot and bolts off, and it won't budge. It didn't budge. That's it. I mean, there's no rule to discuss here. You need to roll a 20. Roll the dice, add your body score to it, or any equipment you have, and there is just nothing to discuss. I mean, it's that simple. And I mean, literally, there is nothing to discuss as a player. You don't have to say, what do I do? How do I do it? And the GM doesn't have to describe it, and then we don't have to look something up, or we don't have to roll multiple dice. And so our entry level to just smooth role-playing, and we still have mechanics that must be adhered to as far as succeeding or failing. And again, one of our rules in our game is it's pass-fail. We don't, failure can look a myriad of ways, and passing will look the way the player declares. I want to kick the door in. If they roll, boom, they're kicking the door in. That's as far as it goes because they said that's their goal. They're kicking the door in. But failure could be the door kicks in, but standing there are 4 guards waiting for you. Or failure could be, the door does get kicked in, so you achieve your goal, but now you got to face 4 guards that happen to be in there playing dice, right? So we can have fun with it, right? So it's not, I guess you could argue fail forward concepts could be used easily in our game as well, right? There's no limit to what the GM can say. There's no limit to how the GM can use the pass-fail mechanic. There's no limit to what the player, in a way, is trying to achieve. I want to draw my sword and challenge the knight to a duel, and I'm going to pull that sword out. I'm just going to give him a little tap on the right side of his face with the end of my sword, and GM says, okay, you don't have to roll for any of that. He steps back. How dare you spit? Draws his sword, and you're now engaged in a duel, right? I mean, we just go, right? There's no rules to this stuff. There's no, we're initiating a gunfight. We're initiating a rule to duel, right? The player just says, I'm challenging him to a duel, and this is how I do it. I smack him with I pull my glove off and I smack him in the face, right? I mean, so our game says, you want a duel? Tell me that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to initiate a sword fight, right? The Viking says, I challenge you. Your child killed my cow. I challenge you to the cow. You declined it. I'm now challenging you to a life or death duel because you will not replace my cattle, right? The Viking demands retribution, right? This is the world we're in. So the Viking can demand a physical challenge, and the player just, there's no rule to say how you can initiate that physical challenge, right? Hopefully players bring to, the one thing Dell and I face, and we're going to face with Dark Age of Man, is, and Mark pointed this out to me, there's a lot of people who don't know the Dark Ages as much as they know Middle Ages. And we might want to gear our game, since it's faux Dark Ages, I mean, it's meant to be a fantastical Dark Ages, so it doesn't have to be exact. But he's right. I think more people understand the Middle Ages naturally via television and film and literature than they know the Dark Ages. And so we may find ourselves steering the Dark Age of Man more toward the Middle Ages in it, so people just more naturally understand kind of what's happening in the world, right? Because again, if not, there are people who may not know Viking history to know that they actually had. They actually did conduct. They had a legal recourse for things, but they might have gone as far as a duel to the death, so to speak, if things weren't metered out fairly, right? At least my reading of Viking lore. I don't, by any stretch, do I pretend to be an expert on Viking history. I don't. It's stuff I've read, right? So I don't. In that sense, I'm also not claiming I know everything about the Vikings or even the Dark Ages, right? I've said it before. I even told Mark, yeah, I mean, even I am not an expert on the Dark Ages. I'm probably leaning more toward a dark, dirty Middle Ages, right? I'm actually leaning more to a more low fantasy Middle Ages is probably what I'm getting at with the Dark Age of Man setting, right? So, but I was thinking about this because I love mechanics and I love games that provide that experience, right? There's nothing wrong with crunchy and complicated games because there's something about also being able to utilize those rules properly and then be successful that is rewarding. And so Dark Age of Man is trying to say, let's put character and role play over tactics, right? Over manipulation of the mechanical table, right? So, we're more risk, less Axis and allies, right? We're more, so, we just have less components to a game that you need to tactically do to win, right? We're trying to empower players to be characters and say what you want to do, and then the GM has a simple tool to say, ooh, dude, there's 12 Vikings in here. It's one hell of a fight. Good luck, and this is going to be a nigh impossible fight for you against 12 Vikings. Roll the dice, right? As we describe the fight in the cavern with one guy on 12 Vikings, right? And I'm keeping a mob a wound sheet, and I know he's fighting at 20. He's going to have to roll 20 to cause wounds to these Vikings. If not, he takes a wound every turn against 12 Vikings that slowly just cut him to bits, right? And so I have this freedom and flexibility. And also, by the way, they're in the rules. So our Vikings are in the rules. Our mob rules are in the rules. I mean, with our rules, by the way. But it's not hard and fast. The GM can say, you're going to fight these Vikings one at a time, or you're going to fight these Vikings as a giant kind of mob effect. And then we narrate it as all of these Vikings fighting one lone guy, and he narrates how he's trying to fight this guy off, kick this guy, stab this guy, and he rolls the dice, and he fails. And we narrate how he feels a sword wound in his back. He feels somebody kick and break his ribs, and so he's slowly being battered to bits. We don't have any hard and fast rules on how the GM can facilitate this, right? So that's the gist of Dark Age of Man. So one of the questions, too, in the comments was, how do you have fun with this? I mean, what's the deal here? It sounds like your GM is really restrained. Well, if you have a chance to watch our AP videos of Dark Age of Man or 2061, and by the way, we were using different games. So I was doing this philosophy with Modern Age, which is a crunchy game. I was doing this with BX, Wild West, for 2 of those 2061 games. And the bottom line is, it's less restricted for the GM, because now the GM is not having to maintain all of this data, and the GM is free now to kind of play, So ironically, the terminology sounds like we're really restricting the GM. No, what we're really doing is just saying the GM doesn't get to use 6 different rules, right? You're not going to roll the die 6 for this. You're not going to roll the die 12 for that. You're not going to have to go to the surprise rules and go to the initiative rules. It's one simple mechanic. So you don't need to know surprise and initiative and saving throws and, I mean, all these different rule layers to play our game. It's simple. You've been poisoned. As you eat this food, you start to feel your stomach turn. You start to feel like you're going to retch. Make a body roll against 18, and they roll the dice. Oh man, 16. And I said, well, you're sick. That's a wound, and you are violently ill. It's going to affect your body scores coming down 1. Your mind score, you're reeling with a fever now as your poison sets in. Your mind score drops to a 0. You are sick, and you are poisoned, and your body's affected. And now the player knows their character is adversely disadvantaged. Right, and everybody at the table says, "Are you sick, man?" And and then I might narrate, "Yeah, now you vomit up uncontrollably. You have no control. You vomit up your dinner. You vomit up blood." And they're all scrambling to say, "Holy cow, dude, you got the plague. What's going on?" And then we're playing. So we don't have to worry about, well, what are the rules for poisoning? What are the rules for saving throws? Right? The GM just says, "Dude, you're not feeling well. You need to make an 18 body check." Right? And he goes, oh, "Okay," and he rolls a dice. Ooh, 6. Yeah, you vomit up a little bit, and then suddenly you're reeling and dizzy, you're sweating, you're feverish, you realize you're cramping, you're bent over double, your body drops, your mind drops, and you've taken a wound. And now everybody knows, uh-oh, Joe's sick, Joe's poisoned, plague, poison, what is it? Don't know, right? So it's really, truly, it's liberating, it's fun, it's fast, it's furious, it's a conversation between players and GM. So we just remove the layers that become obstacles, right? At least to this style of play. I don't, by any stretch, do I pretend that old D&D has obstacles. I know old D&D, I know OSRs. They're not obstacles to me. They're not obstacles to my peers who know those games so well. So I don't mean that D&D has obstacles. They're only obstacles if you don't know how to play those games. They're only obstacles if you're not learned in those games. So we're saying our game is quite literally, it's a great entry level into role playing. It's the kind of thing you could literally sit down with your wife and kids and say, just make it, here's how you make a character. You only need this dice, and when I tell you make a roll for whatever, just roll the dice. And they know they only have to roll the dice. What am I looking for? 12. Oh, you got it. You got it, Skip. Your character stabs the Viking for 1 point. Now mark it down. So it's really a great, simple entry-level game too, but it can be as sophisticated as the level of the players who bring a depth of and breadth of knowledge and history and sophistication. So adults could take it to another level, but a great, just fun entry-level game for families, right? Now, granted, you would want to tone down the darkness of Dark Age of Man if you're playing with your kids, right? You probably wouldn't want to have those levels of mature matter so much, right? But so anyway, but it reminded me, watching those videos, one of the things that I enjoy about more mechanical games, because this isn't either or for me. I love both. I love gaming, whether it's tabletop war games, whether it's now there are games I just won't choose because they're too similar to the thing I'd rather do. I'd rather, instead of Pathfinder, do 5th edition. I had rather, instead of 5th edition, do Sword and Wizardry, because to me 5th edition is just it's roughly the same game, right? It's just I'd rather do it a particular way, and I'd rather have particular certain kinds of limits on the rules. But it's just like choosing vanilla ice cream over chocolate ice cream, right? Okay, so in watching that, I'm waiting for the next series of videos there over on RuneSlinger's channel, because I want to see now Star Trek Adventures be less meta, because it is meta, and the game tends to create a meta environment. It's almost unavoidable because we have to discuss resources, and this is true of Star Wars NDS. I can't watch actual plays of Star Wars NDS. I know players will tell you it's amazing what the dice do, and the dice create these amazing moments of narrative flavor, and we all bring it to the table, and the dice direct it, and we get to play off that. But dude, watching it is torture. And it's torture because it's always players looking at information and just extrapolating to come to a conclusion that we do automatically, right? So I watched the other night, this is a great example, I watched a Star Wars game, and one of the players rolled the dice. He very quickly extrapolated what the results were, and then he narrated, exactly what his character did. And I remember telling Dell later in a conversation, which is identical to what we do. The player that says what he wants to do, then he rolls the dice to confirm it, and then he goes on to narrate what that looks like. Versus rolling 12 dice, pulling this out, this out, this out, this out, eliminating, doing the counters, then going, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? Then once he figures it all out, how he wants to do it, what it means based on his character and his rules, he then narrates the results. We're removing all of that and just saying either you pass or you fail. Now narrate what that looks like. And the pass fails have a limit. I mean, a pass with combat is 1 wound. If you roll a 20, it's a double wound, or it's an injury, right? Or it's cursing or poisoning, whatever. Your blade is covered in poison, but it might only be activated on a 20, right? Or vice versa. They sting you. The giant scorpion stings you, but it's only going to inject you with the poison on the 20, right? So, or on the 1, actually, critical failure, because it's a single die roll system. So, but for me, we can role play anything, and we can role play complicated and crunchy. It's just a matter of to what level you want to role play and to what level you need to utilize the mechanics to extrapolate what you're allowed to describe or what you're allowed to narrate. And we are trying to say, I don't want to put limits on whether a player is allowed to narrate how they kick a door in, or whether they want to try to kick a door in, etc. And again, I'm keeping this very basic. We're talking, in our game, things could get a lot more complicated. Literally, we want players to be able to say, it's going to take us a week to travel to Norwich. On the road, I'm going to recruit all the peasants I can and build an army on the way. And we're going to try to pick the smartest ways to camp. And when we camp, I'm going to teach these guys how to fight with their pitchforks and their torches. And so they narrate the whole journey and how they're trying to recruit. And then I just say quite simply, okay, with your prestige of 3, you can do this. That's okay. But you're going to have to make a roll to see how many people you recruit. And on these adventures, do you train them up satisfactorily? And so I say you need to roll a 15 and up. 15 plus my 3 prestige, 18. Okay, I succeeded, Jason. What does that mean? Well, it means everything you said, right? You ended up putting together an army of 25 peasants. They're all fairly fit young men that you've been able to teach them how to kind of fight with the pitchforks and the torches and whatever weapons they have available. It's going to lower the difficulty of the Viking army that you're going to face, right? That Viking army may be at 24. I'm not going to tell them what they're lowered to, but what it's going to do is it's going to bring that Viking army difficulty maybe down a notch, right? As they're preparing an army to face the Vikings, right? So that's the flexibility our game offers. It is utterly flexible, right? And it allows the GM and the players to imagine this space, and then the GM can still say, well, this is as much as it's going to do, and this is as much as it can do, but you still have to achieve success. So, there are in that sense, we just make the mechanics incredibly accessible to anybody, and we allow whatever level of role player. So if you're playing with people who aren't totally new to this, our game is a great way for them just to get the idea of what's it like to be a character and be in a world, and then say what you want to do or ask what you can do and roll the dice to see how that affects play. And GMs who don't have a lot of experience, you don't have a whole lot of rules to know, so you can really sit down and say, I'm really going to put life into this king, and I'm going to role play the hell out of this king. But the great thing is, I don't have to worry about the king's charisma score. I don't have to worry about the king's entourage. I don't have to worry about the king's social mechanic. I don't have to worry about those kind of things. The king literally is whatever I say the king is. The king is an 18, so everything they do with the king is probably going to need an 18 or more to convince him, or to fight him, or to beat him in a war, whatever. Now, the king's difficulty can be moderated up and down based on how they deal with the king, right? The king can be made softer in negotiations through good dialogue, good conversation, them adding silver to the table, them adding trade to the table, right? Or it can be harder as they alienate the king with threats and nonsense talk. The king's difficulty level now just gets harder and harder, right? So the GM has utter flexibility. So when I say the GM's limited, I just mean the GM is the guy that's limited by the universal dice system. You're only limited that you get to use the die 20, and you get to ask them to beat a particular number on the die 20. You're not limiting the GM in his scope of play, or you're not limiting the GM in his scope of prep. You're not limiting the GM in his scope of detail, right? None of that, right? So it's really like D&D sans all other rules. We basically put everything into one simple difficulty and one single die roll for the players. Now, those die rolls could be, when I say single, it could be literally 15 dice rolls in a fight to the death in a sword fight. Or it could be they narrate the entire sword fight, and now we just roll to see if it's true or not, right? Depends on how players and GMs want to broach the conversation. Is this travel day to day? We're going to make multiple rolls per day. Or are we going to narrate this montage of them traveling for 6 months across the mountains, and we narrate this montage of challenges, and I might make you make 3 or 4 rolls on. So by the time you get there, you might be hurt, you might be fatigued, you might have lost some of your army, whatever the case may be, right? So we, in a way, we're free to create rules because the one simple dice mechanic supports any rule that the GM creates on the fly as a ruling, and it also supports anything the players might dream up. I have the dice to say, this is hard, dude. Great idea, but man, I'm not going to let you have it. You're gonna have to roll an 18 plus here, buddy, using your spirit, right? So it becomes a negotiation and a conversation between a GM and player, and the GM is in no way, shape, or form limited on the width and breadth of what they can ask of the players. You guys are going to be. It's day to day. It's horrible weather. It's winter. It's cold. You don't have food. Your horses are sick. You're going to have to roll every day to hunt. You're going to have to make a roll. This is going to be brutal. I'm going to make you grind out this 2-week journey through the tundra. You're going to be rolling dice for hunting. You're going to be rolling dice for freezing. And as you fail those rolls, it could be a loss of hit points. It could be somebody dies in your entourage. It could be one of your bagmen dies. It could be the that you've got torch bearers that are now frostbitten and they're not effective. And we can go any way we want. It's utterly open. So hopefully that gives an idea of what actual play feels like. Hopefully it gives an idea that our game doesn't play much different than you would say Hexcrawl D&D, right? The random chart generator is very much like a random or wandering monster chart. It's very much like a Hexcrawl, except we want it vague, so the GM has to kind of be creative in play. The GM kind of gets to kind of at the same time go, what do bandits mean? I can make these bandits lost. I can make these bandits evil. I can make these bandits pathetic. I can literally, bandits, just as bandits, right? So we kind of want the GM free to kind of decide what are the bandits right now in session. Right now in session, these guys have had it easy. I'm going to make these bandits a challenge because it's been too easy for them today. Or you know what? They're really beat up. So now these bandits become a real threat. This is terrifying for them because they're beat up. They're lost. So what, are these bandits looking for captives? Are these bandits looking for ransom? Are these bandits looking to just kill them and steal their goods? Right? So I'm free to figure that out. Okay. So I think that kind of gives an idea about our AP and whether it's fun or not. I'm liberated. It's joyful for me to GM. Let's put it this way. I don't enjoy GMing any other way now. Right? So to answer, I can only answer for me. I prefer GMing Dark Age of Man, AIA, IDW, Sword and Wizardry Continual Light, BX, I GM this way. Modern Age, I GM'd this way. I prefer this style of GMing. I'm having more fun. I'm more relaxed. I'm having a blast. The players, I think, are engaged. I think the players enjoy the freedom to pursue their interests. I think the players enjoy their freedom to declare what they're trying to achieve, and the GM is free to then say, yeah, but. Yes, but this is a tough door. Dude, this lock is way above your head. What are you talking about? You don't have lock picks, right? You can get into a narrative and a negotiative process, right? Okay. And also, I look forward to watching the more intricate mechanical layers of 2D20 and how Anthony and company start to achieve that with less game speak, with less mechanic speak, with less rule queuing, etc. I mean, they're learning the game and they've gone through that process, and so I'm looking forward now to see them role play this much more complicated game. I'm looking to see more of that role play. I want to see how invisible Star Trek 2D20 can be. I personally don't think it can be invisible. I think we can role play through the mechanics, right? I think that's true of every game. I can role play through any mechanics. But I don't know if it's ever going to be so invisible that we're not having some game chatter, some game speak. And that's not bad. It's just, I'm curious because I actually enjoy those games, but I enjoy being in character, and I enjoy less role-playing interruptus, right? Less pause and stop role-playing. I want to be engaged with my peers. I want to be engaged with the GM. I want as a GM to be engaged with the players. I want the players engaged with the NPCs. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking to strip away the layers of the onion, and we get down to the heart of the onion. So there's just less stuff in our way, and that's all I do by simple. When I talk about AIA, to me that's perfect, right? AIA is the perfect example of simple. IDW, In Darkest Warrens, for those of you who don't know, and AIA's Astonishing Interplanetary Adventures. These are one-page role-playing games. They're minimalist role-playing games. They're available on Drive Through RPG for pay what you want. I think like $2. I think he wants to, by Robert. I think it's Robert or Scott Malthouse. Love those games. Those games confirmed where I was going as a GM and where I wanted to go as a player. I enjoy Peace. I enjoy GMing Peace. I'm going to continue to play Peace. I'm going to continue to GM Peace. But there's no doubt that over the course of the next few months, I'm going to be getting farther and farther away from complicated games, probably, and more into what I'm trying to achieve here, which is I want to sit down and let's say I got 2 hours. How much do I want to achieve in 2 hours with a group of 3 or 4 guys? I want to achieve a ton of shit. I don't want to spend 2 hours just to get on the aircraft and take off, right? I don't want to spend an hour and a half just to navigate through one hallway into the aircraft, boost up the boosters, and launch into orbit. I don't want to lose 2 hours with games that are that slow, that grind the thing down to minutia, right? We grind it down to one scene. An entire session becomes 1 or 2 scenes. No, I want an entire session to be a completed arc, right? As one of our guys said, listen, sounds like you guys are doing side quests. Are there arcs? Absolutely, there's arcs, and the arcs occur literally in session. One of our Dark Age of Man, we meet for the first time Dell's character. By the end of that session, Dell's character saved a young girl, rescued the young girl, and then went after her brother, the king, to deal with the situation. I mean, really, we saw an amazing arc in 1 2-hour one-on-one session between Dell and I. His character started a particular way and had a hell of an adventure, and we saw an arc of his character as he ultimately adopted this girl. He ultimately decided to protect this girl. He decided to take on the challenges of this princess who's been kicked out of her, right? It was remarkable. And so we got a story arc through play, not through device, right? We didn't invent it. I didn't say, okay, he's going to start at A, he's going to go to B, he's going to experience C, then he's going to go to D, and we will have had a character story arc. So no, there's no traditional story arcs in my prep. I prep a thing that they encounter. I prep pieces that could interfere with that. They make decisions, but at the end of the day, we look back and go, "Dude, do you realize what happened between you and this king's sister? It took us on this adventure, and we end up with this arc of a story." Purely from them playing, not from some contrivance of manipulated storytelling, right? I'm not going to manipulate him into seeing my story go from A to B. He's going to see these events and these people, and he's going to make decisions that actually end up telling us what happens, right? Through experience, through actions, through play, not through contrivance. And never in my life have I contrived story arcs. Never in my life have I contrived a beginning, a middle, of an end. I've never done that, man. And so I'm not going to start now. But Dark Age of Man, with Random Seed Generator and the naive narrator seat for the GM, has just simplified how much I have to know. And so I'm enjoying it. I think Dell's enjoying it. I think some of the guys that have run our game already with us have enjoyed it. I think those who have played with us have enjoyed it. It certainly lacks tactics. It certainly lacks the minutia and the details of mechanical. If you want Pathfinder's complexity of combat, you do not want to play our game, right? If you want Peace's complexity of combat, you do not want to play our game, right? Because our game reduces those things to conversation and a few dice rolls as we narrate the fight, as we narrate the war, as we narrate the conflict, as the player narrates his actions, and we roll dice to see if you actually did stab the barbarian or he stabbed you. So those of you who want the procedural tactics of, say, even old D&D aren't going to like what Dark Age of has to offer in combat, right? So it's, again, that's just the nature of our game being different than those, but our game being different than those, but not so different than many others. I mean, I know there are other games out there that do something similar to what we're doing, right? So there you go. That's the best way I can answer those questions, gents. And at the same time, I wanted to share how much I'm really looking forward to watching a Star Trek 2D20 presented in a less mechanical way. It's going to be very cool to see. and I've enjoyed both my Conan games with 2D20. I've both. I don't know how many I've had, 3 or 4, and I enjoyed all the Star Trek 2D20 adventure games I've had. We never reached in those games that level of competency where we understood so well the rules and the mechanics that we could just role play and recognize all the rules. It was above my head. It was way above my head, and we were busting our hump to learn those rules. We were busting our hump to do it right, and of course, that part is satisfying when you get it right. But the part that wasn't satisfying was the role play interaction between me and my colleagues as we're all working at the rules, and me and my colleagues. And again, some things are good for watching. Some things aren't. I have a heck of a time watching any Star Trek NDS games. I don't care where they're at out there. Maybe somebody can put in the comments, dude, you need to watch these guys play Star Trek NDS. Because when I watch Star Trek NDS games, it's torture for me. I mean, it's all guys just talking about the dice, and it's all guys trying to come up with a good explanation for the results, as opposed to, the same thing we do. We narrate the result. They narrate the result, but they're cued by all these dice. But it's funny how it's just this. I can't watch it. It's difficult to watch, and that's not a knock on the game. That's the table, right? And I've said this before. Role playing is not a spectator sport. You're supposed to be playing role playing games with your buddies. I don't think role playing is ever meant to be something you sit back, put your feet up, and enjoy watching. I mean, who am I kidding? I don't think my APs are worth watching. Who wants to sit and watch somebody read Shakespeare, right? I don't want to sit and watch somebody read. You don't want to sit and watch me roll dice, talk about game mechanics. And maybe some people do to learn, right? As tutorial, dude. How does he do in that thing with threat? And then you watch a few and you go, oh, I get it now. I get what he's doing with threat. Okay, I get it. So as a tutorial, maybe people can learn from watching AP. But who are we kidding, man? AP's not high entertainment, So so I say that with a grain of salt about NDS games when it isn't like watching our APs are phenomenal entertainment, right? I mean, but it's easier to watch us be characters and just converse than it is to watch us manipulate dice or extract results from mechanisms or flip open books and look up rules, right? Unless that's what you're into, right? Some people are just into that part of the game, right? Some people, that's the whole reason they sit down. So anyway, cool stuff. Thanks for those of you who are subbed up and are watching and contributing. Thank you. For those of you interested in Dark Age of Man, never fail to ask questions. I probably make more videos than our game is actually complicated. I mean, I'm making more videos about our game than our game is actually complicated. So the reality is, it's just not, our game is just not that, it's not worthy of this level of conversation other than how we play it. But as far as the game itself, it's not complicated, and it's not something that really needs to be broken down as much. I think we're trying to share a style. Dell and I are trying to express a style of how we do this thing, which we did with Modern Age, which we did with AIA, which we did with IDW, which we did with Basic BX, which I did with Sword and Wizard Continual Light. It's a certain style how we're GMing, or I'm GMing and playing, that is, I guess I'm trying to express. The rules that we've written just utterly support that. So they're there to complement that style, not to change your gaming, if that makes sense. So anyway, thanks for watching. Have a fantastic week. Again, Cyberpunk this weekend. I have to hit the rules, man. I've perused the rules. I haven't read them fully yet, so I got some homework to do to be ready to play Cyberpunk Red this weekend. And I will certainly do a recap and reflections as to whether I like the game and whether I like the rules. That'll be fun. Okay, bye.